In today's video, I'm going to show you how I grow my kale to get a really good harvest. So kale is a extremely frost tolerant leafy green, rich in antioxidants, some fiber, calcium, vitamin A, C, and K, and some iron and potassium. Some of you guys asked me in one of my other videos how I grew such large kale plants. So I wanted to put together an ultimate kale growing guide and all the tricks I've learned along the way. For a spring harvest, you want to start your seeds 6 to 8 weeks before your last expected frost date, and you want to transplant them into the ground as soon as the soil is workable. For a fall harvest, you want to do the same. You want to start your seeds 6 to 8 weeks before your first frost date. That's normally late July or early August. This allows your kale to start growing, and then by the time it gets cooler weather, you'll be ready to harvest. When the kale plant gets hit by a light frost, the starches in the kale turn into sugar, which sweetens the leaves up. If you live in a consistently hot climate that doesn't get any frost at all, then you want to make sure you plant your kale in the coldest part of your years, and you want to give your kale plants at least 6 hours of direct sunlight a day. To be honest, last year I had no success with kale, so I think I screwed up on the timing of kale. I planted it too late. So this year my goal was to grow kale and redeem myself. Tastes really good. You can direct sow or transplant your kale, but I'd recommend you start your kale in seed trays. Using seed trays allows for you to wait for your precious garden space to free up while you're still able to grow your kale. So say this Swiss chard isn't ready to come out, start your kale, grow it, and then by the time this comes out, you've already got a head start on your kale. To start your seeds, I'm using a Miracle-Gro seed starting mix. Put as much as you need into a big bowl. Add some water. I always pre-soak. It's easier to fill your seed trays up. Fill your seed trays up and push down the top third of each hole. This compacts the soil, so when you do put your seeds down, the seeds aren't going to move around on you. Add some more soil and fill the tray up to the top. Pick your kale seeds. Put some kale seeds into your hand and add 2 to 3 seeds per cell. The rule of thumb is to plant your seeds double the diameter of the seed. Kale seeds are very small, so you only need to plant them about 1/4 inch deep. After you're done, add some more mix on top, just enough to cover your kale seeds. Lightly push down to keep the seeds in place while you water. Grab the sexiest Sharpie you could find and make sure you label the variety. You'll thank me later. Plop that into your seed tray and put a humidity dome over top. Using a humidity dome keeps the moisture in your seed trays so you don't have to water as much. And in 4 to 10 days, you should have some kale seedlings. Could you guys do me a favor? My cat Miko is a Maine Coon. He's 25 pounds. He came to me. He said he'd beat me up if you guys didn't like the video. For doing so, here's a picture of my cat Miko. Kale likes a well-draining, organically rich, high-nutrient soil with a slightly acidic pH between 6 and 7. Each plant should be at least 18 inches apart or 1.5 feet. But say you got rows of kale, so you got one here, one here. The spacing between these two plants, 18 inches, but the space between the two rows should be between 18 and 24 inches. And if you don't have a lot of garden space, then you should do some companion planting or intercropping. Plant something that does well with shade, like spinach, lettuce, arugula, beets, something that can handle the shade. Because kale plants, them suckers get big. Kale has a fairly large rooting system, so you want at least 1 foot of depth in any of your garden beds. So the growth of the plant itself starts from the outside and any new growth is in the middle. So when you do harvest, you just want to take the outside leaves, the very bottom outside leaves, not the top. Just pinch it off. You can use your fingers, they're very easy to rip, or you can use scissors. You want to leave 4 to 5 of the top leaves, just so the plant can keep getting sunlight. You only want to harvest 1/3 of your plant at any time, and that's just allowing the plant to photosynthesize the sunlight and keep growing. So the red Russian kale, one of the easiest ways to harvest the leaves. I don't like eating the stem. Some people do. For me, just pull up the stem. You got pretty much everything here. And then with this piece here, throw it into your compost pile, dig it into your garden, whatever you guys want. When it comes to any leafy green, You want to mainly focus on nitrogen. That's in charge of the leaf growth of your plant.
Awesome.
Which is what you're harvesting, so it makes sense. The main things I've been using this year is bone meal. It's got a 12 for nitrogen. The middle number is the root development. So I use both of these as soon as I transplant, and then I do the shake and feed. All purpose, I only do half of the recommended amount, so it's a 5-5-5, and I fertilize every 3 weeks roughly. So I'm wanting to start this how to grow series, have a playlist on my YouTube channel, and it's for any new gardeners, anyone that's never grown vegetables before, just starting out in gardening. So if you're here for the first time growing kale, welcome. As I make videos on different vegetables, then I'll just throw them into this playlist somewhere in the description. So with that said, the most common pests for kale are aphids, cabbage butterflies, and flea beetles. And for aphids, sometimes it's due from over-fertilization.
Did you eat that big tomato off of there?
Yeah, why? That was mine. I called dibs.
I was going to get it.
I called dibs. I planted 2 marigold flowers in my raised garden bed. One's in a pot and one's in the ground. Marigold have a very distinct scent. They're very vibrant with colors, so they can both attract and repel pests. Bro, you're in the video now. You're a superstar. You're a superstar. The best companion plants for kale are cilantro, dill, beans, marigolds, garlic, onions, and most rooted crops. And the worst companion plants for kale are tomatoes, strawberries, and other brassicas such as broccoli, cauliflower, bok choy, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage. I hope this video helps you guys grow some gigantic kale. If you enjoyed this video, then check out our other How to Grow series. I'm going to link the playlist in the description below. With that said, good night, gardeners. See you in the next video. I'm going to go over some of the details of the kale plant. The scientific name, Brassica oleracea. Growing season is cool season. Can take a bit of a frost. So you want to plant a very early spring or a late summer for a fall harvest. You can direct sow and transplant. I prefer transplanting. For sunlight, you can do full sun or partial shade. You want 6+ hours of direct sunlight a day. So for germination time, 5 to 10 days and 2 to 3 weeks to transplant it into the garden after they germinate. 1 to 1.5 inches. Temperature wise, kale grows best in 55 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit or 13 to 24 degrees Celsius. If you do live in a hotter climate and you have temperatures higher than 75 degrees Fahrenheit, then you want to grow your kale in partial shade. Kale likes loose soil with a pH between 6 and 7 and high in organic material. Because it's a leafy green, you want to fertilize mostly with nitrogen. Nitrogen is what does the leaf growth. The best companion plants for kale are cilantro, dill, beans, marigolds, garlic, onions, and most rooted crops. The worst companion plants for kale are tomatoes, strawberries, and any other brassica, so broccoli, cauliflower, cabbages, Brussels sprouts, bok choy. Those are all no bueno for your kale. The most common pest for your kale plants are aphids, flea beetles, and cabbage worms.